Southeast Texas Weekly, brought to you by the Modern Vein Surgery Institute at Privity Clinic for Surgical Care.
Thanks for joining us for Southeast Texas Weekly. I'm Jackie Simeon. On this week's edition, we'll explore healthier Creole cooking in honor of Mardi Gras with Chef Sean Paradin, and we'll detail the upcoming Port Arthur City Council PTA Founders Day and PAISD State of Schools Luncheon. But first, buying a house is likely to be the largest and most important investment you'll ever make. Getting the timing right can help save you some trouble and some money. Here to help by answering some questions you should consider first is Keller Williams Realtor Daniel Woodson. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
Very good. Your offices are in Houston, but tell us about your Beaumont connection.
Well, I was actually born in Beaumont. My mother's from Beaumont, graduated from Charlton Pollard in 1961, and we moved to Houston after that, and then I came back to Beaumont to go to Lamar University from 83 to 88, graduated with a Bachelor of Business in Accounting. So I'm now in sales. I've been in sales for over 16 years, now taking a gander at real estate, and very excited to provide any information that I can.
Very good. Well, help us out for these first-time home buyers. Where do we begin? How does the process start?
Well, a lot of people want to shop on the internet and maybe go by open houses, but it's highly recommended that you go to a mortgage lender to find out what your buying power is. Because a lot of times if you want to put forth an offer, in order to be serious about that, the seller wants to know that you've got pre-approval. So that would be your first step.
All right, very good. And then should you contact, or what's best to do? Do you contact the seller's agent and work with them, or do you seek out a buyer's agent?
Well, some people want to do that themselves, but it's highly recommended when you're talking about negotiating with professionals who do this for a living, that you get a buyer's agent who is just as informed about the ins and outs of the marketplace and know the do's and don'ts of the game. So I would highly recommend getting a buyer's agent.
And how much does it cost then to secure the services of a buyer's agent?
Believe it or not, it costs you absolutely nothing. The commission of the buyer's agent is paid actually by the seller's broker, which is a pre-negotiated amount, typically 3%. So it costs you nothing to get the type of advice and the type of representation that you would need as a buyer going into making a major purchase such as that of a home.
All right. Now, what is information about brokerage services, an IABS agreement? What is that?
Typically what that is just informing the buyer or seller what the fiduciary duty is of a broker to that particular buyer or seller, saying that I will represent you when we're going into, say, a buyer or seller situation. Also, it informs you that the broker will serve as an intermediary, and in that particular case will represent both the buyer and seller with no favoritism to one or the other. It's more or less a go-between.
And how's the housing market for us here in Southeast Texas right now? I know a lot of times we buck national trends.
Mm-hmm. Well, Houston area specifically, it is definitely a seller's market, mainly because you're having multiple offers being presented for a given listing. And I wanted to add one more thing, two more pieces of information that should be signed. One, a buyer's rep agreement between the buyer and the agent, and also a pre-listing agreement or an agreement between the seller and the seller's agent, just showing that good faith, I will represent you in return for a commission for all the work that I do.
And in this area, how's the housing situation? Is it in favor of the seller or the buyer at this time?
Now, what I would do here in this case, if someone would contact me, I can put you in touch with a Keller Williams agent here to give you better information, because I don't want to opine on this particular market, but we definitely have some agents that are very capable and very able to assist you here in Southeast Texas.
All right, now you helped us out on the buying side. What if you want to sell your home? What are the first steps you should take in selling your home?
Well, there are what is called a FSBO, which is a for sale by owners, what we say in the biz, and then you have those who actually want a seller's agent. You can do either, but I would highly recommend getting a seller's agent to give you the do's and don'ts and the ins and outs of listing your home on what's called a multiple listing service. And then they can advise you whether or not to get an inspection so that you can fill out what's called a seller's disclosure form to make sure that whoever wants to buy your home knows everything that needs to be known about that home.
Very good. And if you don't qualify for a new home loan, what are some other things you can do?
I mean, that's the American dream, is for everyone wants to have a home. But if you don't qualify, you can at least continue to rent and maintain good, strong rental history and still check with the mortgage lender, because you may qualify for what is called a lease, so you can particularly continue to lease a home. So that is another option as well.
And there's always that debate about buying or renting. What are the pros and cons, and how do you know if you should continue renting or if now's the time for you to buy?
That's why I highly recommend contacting a mortgage lender, because based on your credit score, you may still be able to buy a home although you're renting. And then some people should continue to rent because of those challenges to their credit scores. So it's one of those things that I would consult a professional, and then there's always the tax advantage if you are a home buyer with deductions at the end of the year.
Very good. You've been very helpful. Let's put up your information, how people can contact you. We have a phone number for Daniel Woodson. It's not coming up, so why don't you just give us the number?
All right, it's 281-788-9926. That's 281-788-9926. And my email address is 007agentdan@gmail.com. That's 007agentdan@gmail.com. Or my website is www.dwoodson.kwrealty.com.
Very good. I Googled your name earlier with Keller Williams, and your website came up that way too.
Great.
So very good. Thank you so much for talking with us. Up next, we're celebrating Creole cooking with Chef Sean Paradin.